Continuing coverage now on the steep spike in gas prices. Tonight, we're investigating what's driving up costs here in Colorado. For clarity and context on this issue, I turn to the CEO of Colorado's Oil and Gas Association for answers. If you filled up at the pump this week, you've probably noticed prices are soaring, and there's no sign of them dropping anytime soon. Tuesday, the Biden administration announced a ban on Russian oil. What percentage of oil is actually imported to Colorado from Russia?
I don't know the exact, or if any of that oil is necessarily imported into Colorado. I do know the United States gets something like 3% of its imports from Russia, and that's of crude oil.
Dan Haley is the president and CEO of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association. He's closely monitoring current events overseas that are having a big impact here at home. But you may be wondering how banning 3% of the nation's crude oil supply from reaching the U.S. has somehow resulted in gas prices jumping more than 40 cents in a week. So is what we're seeing as far as gas prices in Colorado a result of speculation or a result of current market trends?
What you're seeing is a supply problem, and we've had a developing supply problem globally for the last several months.
He says gas prices were already rising prior to the Russia-Ukraine war, and we found that to be true. In fact, 4 months ago, gas was under $3 a gallon in our state. But as the pandemic winds down, people have started traveling more, and demand increased quicker than the supply has. That's problem number one, according to Haley. Problem number two is that there's a lot of uncertainty with what's going on overseas, and that rattles the market everywhere.
Those are disruptions in the global supply chain.
But we had to ask, where does the majority of the oil in Colorado come from?
Sure, so about 90% of the oil developed in Colorado comes from Weld County. Underneath the western slope are the second largest natural gas reserves in the country. So we would love to be able to develop that gas.
And that's problem number three. He says recent Colorado legislation has slowed permitting and oil drilling in our state. Even if regulations or legislation were to change to allow more oil production locally, it's not an overnight fix. And as federal lawmakers have brought up the possibility of temporarily suspending the nationwide gas tax to save drivers a few bucks at the pump, it's important to note that Colorado taxes drivers 22 cents for every gallon of gas they put in their car. Have there been any conversations in Colorado to temporarily suspend the state tax on gasoline to help provide some relief at the pump?
I have not been privy to any conversations like that.
In the end, you may be asking yourself, what's the long-term solution here?
There's a lot of people who say we need to turn at moments like this to renewable energy, and I'm saying that certainly should be part of the solution, but we have to. We know we're going to rely on oil and natural gas through 2050 and beyond. So where do you want to get that oil and gas from? Do you want to get it from Russia? Do you want to get it from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela? Or do you want to get it from local workers producing it under these tough environmental standards here in Colorado and here in the United States? That's the conversation we need to have as a country, and now is the time to have it. In response to this story, Governor Polis's office released a statement saying there are over 2,600 oil and gas permits issued, but no drilling has occurred yet. Today, Governor Polis also signed a letter with other governors asking Congress to suspend the federal gas tax. However, he did not address our questions specific to suspending the state gas tax. And here's a look at the average gas prices in all of Colorado. This is according to AAA. The current average now sits at $3.83 per gallon. That's compared to $3.75 just yesterday and $3.38 from 1 week ago. And we're already seeing an increase in averages in our area compared to Monday. In Colorado Springs, the average is now at $3.81 per gallon. Pueblo is at $3.84 and Denver sits at $3.80 a gallon.